Yo, what up, everybody? I'm your host, Will. Welcome to Fandom Frequency. This is where we get into the entire multiverse of pop culture, if you will. And I'm not just talking about the Marvel multiverse, I'm talking about TV shows, anime, comic books, wrestling. We talk about any of those topics and everything else right here on the channel. So make sure you're joining the community today if you're digging the vibe. And speaking of the community, we just hit 400 subscribers on the channel. So thank you very much to everyone out there supporting the channel and being a part of this community. We're always trying to grow it. Our big goal by the end of the year is 1,000, and we're just trying to be able to get to that next tier on YouTube, have those different opportunities and different ways we can expand the channel and do even more content for you guys. So thank you so much for showing your support and showing that love. All you people jumping in the comments lately, putting likes on the videos, and if you're sharing them on social media and all that, we really do appreciate you guys and really wouldn't be anywhere without y'all. We just have fun doing this project and just love getting into the stuff that we love to talk about the most. But today we're going to be talking about one of my personal favorite film franchises, and don't get confused with this guy on the hat. I'm talking about the X-Men franchise tier ranking, baby. We're going to be going from S, A, B, C, D, and F tier, getting into all 14 installments in the X-Men franchise, because it is definitely a mixed bag of a franchise if we're all being honest with ourselves in the movies. I enjoy every single installment for the most part, minus maybe two of them overall. So 12 out of the 14 installments I do enjoy enough. I can rewatch them, and 6 or 7 of them are some of my are dope as hell, and a few of them are some of my all-time favorite films, and definitely some of my favorite comic book films of all time. So make sure you're throwing your tier ranking down below as we're getting into ours. But with no further ado, let's get into mine. So we're going to be going in release order. So we're going from 2000 to 2024, baby. 2024 for all you newbies out there. But I say 2024 because it sounds retro, I guess. But anyway, let's get into it, man. So we're going in release order. So we're going to start from the original X-Men from 2000. And for some of you Gen Zers out there, you maybe weren't around for when this film dropped. It was revolutionary. It is one of the most influential comic book movies ever released. It is one of the most important superhero films ever released because it's where people took the source material seriously. It became a big hit, made Hugh Jackman and Wolverine household names, and expanded the X-Men franchise to so many casual people that don't even read comic books. This has always been one of the most popular film franchises since the year 2000 and of the 21st century. And I've been there to experience every single installment. I didn't see this one in particular in the theater, but I have seen every single one of these minus the New Mutants and the Wolverine in theaters opening weekend for these films, man. So I've been there for the whole ride. And this film is always going to have a special place in my heart. I'm always going to have nostalgia for it. It is what turned me on to the X-Men in a bigger and deeper way. I liked the 90s cartoon as a kid. I was born in 94, so I got to watch the reruns in late like 98, 99, things like that leading into the film. And then once I saw this, it completely blew my mind. First time seeing anything about the Holocaust, all kinds of really influential and big, more mature and sci-fi types of elements in this film that really did influence a lot of my taste when it comes to film and TV. So that's the thing for me, that it's just such an influential film for me, but I also think it's so important for pop culture in a general sense of where we are today. And also, for the most part, it doesn't nail every single aspect of the X-Men comics, obviously, as an adaptation. It doesn't have every big, important thing in there. It is a bit dated. I do think some of the elements of the story and the overall threat from the Brotherhood of Mutants and Magneto and things like that don't necessarily play that well. It's a little more cartoony. It doesn't necessarily have that substance to it, other than what Magneto's whole kind of worldview is. His plan and what he's actually trying to do in the plot of the film isn't that great when you start getting into that. When Wolverine kind of joins the team, gets his leather suit. Why in the hell are we going to be wearing latex up in here, boy? It's because it's fucking time, baby, 2024. But we're jumping too far ahead. So with that, man, I got to say, I love this film. It's an important film for me. But I can't put it all the way on the top. But I am going to put the original X-Men in the B tier, okay? It's awesome. Don't get me wrong. But got to get it in B tier. So as we get into the sequel, X2, X-Men United, as I like to just call it, X2 or X-Men 2, from 2002. And let me say, man, this film is a fucking blast. Just from the opening scene with Nightcrawler through the whole fucking film, I love this movie. I enjoy every second of it. I've always said this is one of the best sequels in the past 20-some years. This is one of the best sequels of all time. This is one of the best comic book or superhero sequels ever made. Goddamn right. I'm not saying it's better than The Dark Knight, but I'm saying it belongs in the conversation in the same tier almost in the sense of superhero movie sequels. I'm not saying it's as good as The Dark Knight, but I'm saying as a sequel in the same genre, if you will. It's really fucking good and elevates every element of the previous film. CGI is better, action's better, the plot's better, the characters are better. Or characters that were great before are still great in this movie, if not even amplified. Because I've always been of the school of thought that Hugh Jackman always levels up the character of Wolverine pretty much every time he plays him. And I would even say Origins Wolverine and Last Stand, two of the more disappointing installments in this thing, he still has a very good, if not great, performance. So that's the thing for me, where maybe those weren't better, but they were just the same. But in X2, I felt like he elevated the elements of the character and played more into kind of that father figure role that he kind of plays for Rogue and things like that, and that kind of element to his character in the comic books. Also playing into being more the leader, also diving more into the Weapon X side of his story and in that side of the backstory and the trauma and the fucked up things in his past that he can't remember. That really does shape where the character is mentally when we meet him in the first film. A lot of the character development really works in this film very well. I love the introduction of William Stryker. I can't remember the actor's name right now, but I'm definitely going to flash his name and get him up in here because he deserves that respect on his name. And I know he's been getting a lot of big acclaim for Succession recently on TV. But this guy's been a great actor for years, and he does such a phenomenal performance. And at this point in 2002, since we've had very limited Marvel films, I think we had about maybe 4 or 5 in like more big mainstream, not counting that 90s Fantastic Four they tried to do for the rights. Real true blue Marvel films, starting with Blade, you know what I'm saying, X-Men, Spider-Man 1. I don't know if we had Blade 2 quite yet. So this was the 4th or 5th Marvel film they had did. And let me tell you what, this was the cream of the crop at the time and really did a great job at nailing the characters. It was one of the biggest box office hits at the time. You know what I mean? So I think this movie's awesome. So for me personally, I'm putting X2 in the A tier. I think this film's kick-ass. You know what I mean? If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. You know what I'm saying? I respect all points of view, but I truly think X2 is one of the best superhero movie sequels ever made. It's a kick-ass movie. I love this movie to death, and that's where I'm gonna put it in, man. That's what she said. But now we're gonna be moving into the sequel, the first trilogy capper, if you will, the end of the OG trilogy, X-Men 3, X-Men The Last Stand, man. And let me tell you what. I'm not going to say anything new that hasn't been said before. We're going to keep this one a little bit more short and sweet. Hugely, very disappointing when I seen it at the time. Does have a few redeeming qualities to it, like the whole Wolverine tragic love story with Jean Grey works really well in this film. I actually do think the death of Professor X does have impact. While not developed enough throughout the film, you've had enough time with him as a character throughout the previous 2 films and enough of an idea and enough of an understanding of him and Jean Grey's relationship where you do feel the loss of the character. Patrick Stewart especially put so much charisma and so much gravitas into the character. You do feel it. You do feel the loss. And then with Halle Berry doing one of her best acting moments in the trilogy as well, when she's giving the whole eulogy for him, that was beautiful. So that all plays pretty well. Even the way she did it, like just fucking disintegrated his ass, wiped him off the face of the earth. It was like, damn, you know what I mean? Like there were elements to it that worked. It's getting to see some of the cameos of some of the cool characters, like even just Kitty Pryde and different things like that. Like, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. While stupid, it's fun. And there's some cool action scenes. Magneto moving the goddamn Golden Gate Bridge. You know what I mean? The Cure storyline plays in perfectly with the themes of this trilogy. And I think if that was the 3rd film, and then they led into her having the Phoenix powers, but then went Dark Phoenix for the 4th film, where she was just the Phoenix in this one, and just had a upgrade, and then kind of started getting corrupted by it, and then ended up killing Cyclops by the end of the film, with the whole confrontation going down with the Cure, and then setting up her being the villain of a 4th film, being the big bad in the proper way. Infinity War Endgame this bitch, but just not make it quite as huge and large scale, but maybe jump into the space stuff, I don't know. But anyway, there was a way to make the Dark Phoenix storyline really pay off and still do this Cure storyline that was from an early 2000s run. I think that Josh Whedon wrote. I'm going to have to double check and do my research. But I believe Josh Whedon, yeah, that's right. The Avengers, Joss Whedon, the director and also creator and filmmaker of Buffy. So don't forget that. But and whose reputation has been a little bit more tarnished these past few years. But hey, I wasn't on the set. I'm not going to dive into that. But overall, the Cure storyline to me was pretty cool too. But Kelsey Grammer cast as Beast, one of the best castings in X-Men history too. I will say that. but the only real issue, the big issue though, is neither storyline gets developed enough, and especially the Phoenix storyline being the B storyline in a film like this, not a great idea. It doesn't get fleshed out. Cyclops' death, completely blasphemous, if you ask me. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Put some respect on Scott Summers' name, bruh. So, for sure, it's going to be low on this thing. It's going to be very low. I'm putting it on the D tier, all right? I do think there's redeeming qualities, but this is a pretty bad film. Overall, it's not great, but I can get some enjoyment out of it. But it's really, really a weak story. So, yeah, D tier for sure. Where do we go from here? Oh yeah, time to get into some of that top tier shit, right? X-Men Origins Wolverine, baby, 2009. Y'all were hyped for this one, right? Me too. But yeah, this movie sucks, man. Do I really need to dive into the reasons why it sucks? Do I really need to? No, I don't. X-Men Origins Wolverine, F tier. If you disagree, come at me, bro. No, I'm just playing. But it sucks, bro. Come on. Come on. It sucks. We all know it sucks, don't we? It sucks. So, X-Men Origins Wolverine is going to be in the F tier. Moving on to the next film. We're going to be talking about First Class, baby. X-Men First Class, directed by Matthew Vaughn. One of my personal favorite installments in the franchise. Taking things back to the 60s, going to the prequel, establishing the friendship and the foundation and the formation of the X-Men. Brilliant idea. Diving into that Stanley and Jack Kirby era of the 60s throughout the early 70s of the X-Men, but this film obviously is just primarily taking place in the 60s, is great. Two of the best comic book movie castings of all time, man. James McAvoy as Professor X, Charles Xavier, and freaking Michael Fassbender as Eric Lenscher, aka Magneto. Come on, man. Come on. Some of the best castings of all time. Their dynamic together on screen was electric. Kevin Bacon as Sebastian Shaw, the villain, bringing in the fucking Hellfire Club. Hell yeah. The story moves at a great pace in this film, you know what I mean? The actual tone and the atmosphere is great. It has like this really cool kind of James Bond spy flavor to it. Rose McGowan coming in as Myra McTaggart. I think I fucked up the name, but really cool character from the comics getting brought in as the potential love interest of Charles Xavier. Brilliant stuff. Being the kind of liaison between him and the government and building that connection there that ultimately is going to get dissolved by the end of this film and by the, throughout the rest of the trilogy leading up to our original X-Men trilogy. Brilliant stuff. A great reboot, if you ask me. The only real drawback for me, I think, is that January Jones as Emma Frost really falls flat on its face. I don't have a lot of negatives for it. I just feel like there's X-Men movies that have reached higher heights, whether they're about the team or just a solo character and whatnot. But this is one of the real true bluest ensemble films in the X-Men franchise where Wolverine or nobody like that is taking center stage. It truly feels like Magneto and Charles Xavier are leading the film, but you still get enough time with the rest of the ensemble to feel the camaraderie and the team up really come together, and you get to really feel the stakes and really feel for all the characters involved, between Zoe Kravitz's character and the dude that ended up playing MacGyver later down the line as Scott Summers' brother, and all these different characters that got brought in, Havoc, of course, and all these different characters that got brought into the mix that were different, that were a little bit more of a B tier, kind of C tier list characters that I thought got to get a lot of shine, getting to see Azazel and things like that through the Hellfire Club. And once again, like I said, Kevin Bacon was a phenomenal villain, and the opening sequence with him and the whole Magneto backstory was phenomenal. Totally parallels what Bryan Singer did in the original X-Men, but still does its own thing. This is an awesome-ass installment of X-Men. Of course, it's going to be way up there. It's in A tier, for sure. I really, really dig First Class, and if you love First Class like I do, if you don't like it for whatever reason, I really want to hear that opinion, because that's a pretty hot take, I feel like. But yeah, man, let me know in those comments below. But now it's time to get to the next one, and then another one. And I'm talking about the Wolverine from 2013. Now, the Wolverine movies were not highly anticipated at this time. I didn't even see this in the theater, like I said earlier in the video, in case you missed that. But I did catch it on cable about a year or so later, so about a decade ago. I really, really enjoyed it, but that third act really bothered me at the time, and I will still say after this latest rewatch, after I've seen it a few times over the years, but with this recent rewatch, I really grew to grow and appreciate this film. It's really good. That third act does draw it back, but those first two acts are really strong, full of really great action and character development for Logan, and getting to know the character of Kimiko, I think her name. No, is it Kimiko? I think I fucked up the name, but you know who I'm talking about. His love interest that's kind of in this film, and the way they kind of build that relationship up throughout the film, I thought was actually really well done, and you really bought into that romance and really saw why she'd be attracted and connected to Wolverine, aka Logan, right? So that's the stuff for me that really played well. And the whole Japan setting from the Frank Miller 4-issue miniseries back in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it was the 80s. Really awesome. That was such a great location to put Wolverine in order to tie into him having the claws and sword fighting and different shootouts and chases with the Yakuza. It's really cool stuff, man. I just think that Silver Samurai shit is just way too over the top. Hideyoki Sanada was really cool in the film. I like the dude that was actually playing the character that's traditionally Silver Samurai in the comics, but they did a little bit of a twist with him, kind of being his own like little like Hawkeye Ronin kind of version of the character. So I almost kind of consider him to be Ronin in a way, like an alternate version of Ronin. But yeah, that Silver Samurai twist and all that, really lame. I did not like the Serpent Lady from Serpent Society being in this thing. I think is where that character comes from. Yeah, I just wasn't really digging that. And the whole thing with Wolverine actually getting weakened and not being able to heal as properly and getting that whole virus thing in his heart. Really, really good stuff. Really, really cool overall. But I don't think it's quite top tier X-Men, but it's good X-Men. So I'm gonna throw that one in B tier for sure. So as we move along here, let me make sure I got my release order correct here. Yeah. So now it's time to get into one of the best ones of all time, Days of Future Past. Goddamn, 2014. Woo! It's been a decade, and this film still stands the test of time. My jaw was on the floor when I finished watching this film in the drive-in with my homies. Y'all know who you are. It is awesome. It redeems the X-Men trilogy, brings in one of the most seminal storylines in the comics, even though it's just a 2 or 3 issue run. Days of Future Past, Uncanny X-Men 141 through 142, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know if I'm mistaken there for all you comic book nerds, but this is one of the biggest storylines of all time. They bring in elements from the comics and the elements that are truly important for it, like Kitty Pryde, Wolverine being involved, a lot of the X-Men getting taken out, getting to see X-Men characters we've never thought we'd see before, like Warpath and Bishop, and things like that, getting to see Iceman and Storm and, Professor X and Magneto obviously come back, and getting to see Colossus for a little bit as well. So getting to see these elements from the trilogy that we loved back in the 2000s, but mixed in with the first-class characters that we just grew to love from that previous installment, and bridging those worlds together in order to correct the timeline and really deliver a emotional and really potent story that plays off of fictionalized versions of true events, all that good jazz, bringing in the flavor that you still felt a little bit of that Matthew Vaughn flavor of the period piece, and bringing in that thing there and the espionage of it a little bit, but still getting a little more of the Bryan Singer feel and getting a little bit more of that early 2000s X-Men, that more Usual Suspects kind of tone to it. So this is really an awesome installment. One of my personal favorites. It's a phenomenal movie in my opinion. Not much really drawing this one back. So for me, this is one of the few that's going to be in the S tier. I love X-Men Days of Future Past. One of my favorite comic book storylines. One of my favorite films of all time. If you're in agreement with me, let me know. Days of Future Past, baby. Total S tier material. Come on now. How could you argue that? Now it's time to get into one of the funnest installments in the franchise because X gonna give it to you. It's time to get into 2016's Deadpool. Goddamn, man. We went on such a journey in the world of fandom to get to this movie in 2016, Valentine's Day weekend. And let me tell you what, through the marketing machine, Ryan Reynolds creating an awesome film, and through this thing hitting theaters, Deadpool became an overnight sensation, it felt like to me, and he finally got his just due. I was aware of the character from early X-Men comics and things in the cartoons, and then eventually played the video game on PlayStation 3, if I remember correctly, and then just became a super fan of Deadpool and was just begging for him to be redeemed after that terrible version of him in X-Men Origins. So getting to see Ryan Reynolds really bring this character to life, such a treat. And going back to watch this recently, man, I just forgot how fresh and unique this film really is and how it really felt at the time when we had never really seen something quite like that before. We had seen meta movies like Scream, Last Action Hero, New Nightmare, you know what I mean? Like, there's been meta movies in the past and movies that reference themselves, Rise of Leslie Vernon and all that stuff. But this was truly the first film where I feel like meta really met a great story and an amazing, unique character that you won't ever see anywhere else.
Let us go talk to the professor. McAvoy or Stewart? These timelines are so confusing.
Oh, dead or alive, you're coming with me.
So I thought that really just played well for this film, and that's why it's always been one of my favorite installments. It's got the heart, it's got the humor, it's got the irreverence, it's got everything you want, the violence, everything you want in a Deadpool movie. So Deadpool definitely is going to be one of those top tier X-Men, but I can't quite get it to S, so it's going to be dropping right there in that A tier. Now, we're going to be getting into one of my least favorite installments in the entire run of these X-Men movies, X-Men Apocalypse from 2016. This movie sucks. And I was having a discussion with, one of the viewers of the channel about this recently, where they really love this film, and not to single them out, because there's other people I'm sure out there that really enjoy this film, and I'm sure, it has its defenders out there that are going to pop up for this one right here in the comments. But I just don't like this movie, man. Like, the villain to me completely falls flat, doesn't feel threatening, and also feels very overpowered at the same time. You don't get any substance or any idea of his outlook on what he's trying to do, because you get that he wants to kill humanity off and start everything over and just have the alphas survive and anyone else that doesn't, fuck them, survival of the fittest. But you don't get the context or anything similar to like they did with Thanos in Infinity War for this character, because he's that type of character. And when you have that type of plot, you need to understand the worldview. You don't understand shit. He touches a TV and all of a sudden wants to kill everybody. It's stupid, bro. Like, come on. Like, I don't understand how that's good storytelling right there. I don't understand how that's a good setup for a villain. So, all the fucking Horsemen of Apocalypse, Storm doesn't get any character development. You do get the comic book accurate kind of introduction of where her origins come from, in a sense, but you don't get any character development. You don't get any great moments with her later in the film. Psylocke is completely wasted. Olivia Munn looked perfectly cast to play the part. Pulled off the physicality. There is nothing to the character, just completely two-dimensional. Angel, not that much either. He's just a cage fighter, and they're kind of copying that same thing from Wolverine, if you ask me, in the first X-Men film. You know what I'm saying? I love the Archangel thing with Metallica. All that stuff's cool and all. Some of the X-Men casting and characters was okay. I like Cody Smith-McPhee as Nightcrawler. I don't think that Ty Sheridan is really that great as Scott Summers and things like that. I don't think Sophie Turner was necessarily fantastic as Jean Grey. I think she's actually a lot better in Dark Phoenix, if I'm being honest. But for this one, I thought she was just meh. The Wolverine cameo is pretty cool. I like the introduction of Magneto and what drives him to want to join Apocalypse, but then you don't get anything else from there. So once again, you don't follow through and pay off any character development in the film. Nothing for Myra McTaggart, nothing really for Professor X except being a MacGuffin that Apocalypse wants to get his hands on. The whole entire Quicksilver sequence was cool and all, but then he forgets to save Cyclops' brother, and that's how he dies. I'd have beat the fuck out of that guy. They don't even have a confrontation with that. It's dumb. Like, I don't understand that, bro. Like, this movie is so rushed and haphazard and put together. It stinks, man. For me, Apocalypse is at the bottom of the list right there with Origins Wolverine, F tier. I don't understand how people enjoy this one, man. It just sucks for me personally. But as we move forward here, now it's time for us to get into one of my favorites, one of the top tier, one of the best comic book movies ever. I said it. Logan from 2017. This film's incredible. It's a masterclass on how to create a send-off for a character. The tone is perfect. The directing is perfect. The score is perfect. The action is perfect. The storyline is perfect. The pacing is perfect. Like, this film is amazing. Hugh Jackman deserved, I don't know if he got a nomination for this film. I can't remember if he did, but him and Patrick Stewart, or Sir Patrick Stewart, I should say, should have been got a goddamn nomination for it. I think the script got nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay, but it deserved a lot more love than that. It was one of the best films of 2017. I don't give a fuck what anybody says, dude. And this is a phenomenal movie, man, dealing with the themes of mortality, dealing with regret, dealing with, trauma, and dealing with, reconnecting with a loved one or meeting a parent or meeting someone that you didn't realize was a part of you and now you embrace as being a part of you and as part of your family and as another piece of you, I think was a beautiful storyline. The introduction of Daphne Keane as Laura Kinney, a.k.a. X-23, was amazing. You know what I mean? And her whole dynamic with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, so awesome. And, between her doing Spanish, pulling off the action, doing everything, she was great in this film, man. And Patrick Stewart, like I said, was awesome in this film as well. Boyd Holbrook, I think, had one of his most standout, if not his most standout performance of his entire career as the Reaver. So I really love this film. I just can't really preach it from the rooftops enough. Y'all had to know I was going to put this in the S tier, right? Because that's exactly where it's going to go. Logan, top of the list. Best X-Men film of all time. You goddamn right. Even with the latest release, and y'all know what I'm talking about. So now we're getting into the last three. So why don't we go ahead and do that? Deadpool 2, 2018. I like this film a lot. It's a lot of fun, especially plays better on rewatch and down the line. But it was a bit disappointing for me at the time. But I have grown to appreciate and dig this movie for what it is and enjoy it. I just think on an emotional and story level, it is a bit lacking. But the fun, the action, the zany, irreverent meta nature of this film, just as good as the first film, if not better. The introductions of Zazie Beetz as Domino and Josh Brolin as Cable, I thought were well done. Really cool stuff. Getting to see Juggernaut, who was voiced by Ryan Reynolds, pop up in this thing. A straight up comic book accurate, giant ass Juggernaut. That was really awesome.
It's not a superpower. We are so fucked.
No, we most certainly not fucked.
There's some great references and so many funny moments, and with the whole thing with X-Force dying almost instantly, Vanisher being Brad Pitt. There's so many fun bits in this one. It's a fun ass movie, man. It's a good time, but I do have to be honest and say that I don't think I could put it quite in the top tier, but Deadpool 2 is going to go in the B tier for sure. It's a lot of fucking fun. I really love the movie, man. I wouldn't say I love the movie, but I really enjoy the hell out of it and like it a lot. So, yeah, that's why I'm about to throw that one. Now it's time to get into a controversial one for sure. Dark Phoenix from 2019, and this was somewhat the last this was the last, really the end of the X-Men era, if you ask me, before we got Deadpool and Wolverine, but technically the New Mutants counts, so you got to throw that in. But, we just got a few more here, so I would say Dark Phoenix for me is okay. I think it's a little sloppily written, of course. It doesn't quite come together. I still think Dark Phoenix needs to be like a two-parter type of thing going on. Something they should have built up a little bit more. But they did some of the stuff comic book accurate. They had some good, acting moments in here, some cool action scenes. Sophie Turner, I think, is a lot better as Jean Grey in this installment, but it's a little bit lackluster in the villain department and in the overall execution of Dark Phoenix being the villain and not really being the true blue villain of the film. Them kind of pulling back and not really, her killing Mystique and everything. I thought that was cool and all, but they didn't quite lean into it hard enough for me. I thought Magneto didn't really have much to do in this film, and I thought he was a little bit wasted in it. I thought Beast was a little bit out of character in this one as well. I liked Nicholas Holt's performance, but I didn't really feel like the character was I felt like the character was a little out of sorts in that one. And I understand he was going through grief and going through anger of losing Raven, a.k.a. Mystique, but I don't know. She never really bought into the love story and thought he was being a bit of a simp about it, so it didn't really play as well for me. But, I mean, the film's okay, you know what I mean? I think it's solid, but nothing to, write home about. So I'm going to throw it in C tier, you know what I mean? I think it's all right. I think it's entertaining. I think it's pretty cool. If you're not really connected to the comic book storyline or didn't see Last Stand or have anything else really to compare it to, and you're just coming into it to watch a sci-fi movie, you might dig it, a little bit more than I do, but it's cool, you know what I mean? I don't think it's great. I don't think it's bad. I think it's just somewhere in between. It's all right, So C tier it is. C tier it is. So now we're getting into the last two, y'all. And we're going to be talking about 2020's The New Mutants. I just watched this for the first time today as of the recording of this video. And let me say, it's all right. It's not bad. I feel like if they would have been able to have the reshoots and kind of punch up the script and really let the director execute his full vision and not make him change it and go more towards superhero shit than make him go more towards horror shit just because of the trailer reaction. Because I remember the trailer was really badass, and I actually got pretty hyped for this movie, but then I heard so many bad things about it, I held off watching it until literally this year of our Lord, 2024. So that shows you something. But after finally sitting down and watching it, there's some good casting in here with Anya Taylor-Joy as Ilya Rasputin and things like that. Charlie Heaton playing I can't even remember the name of the character, so I'm just going to call him Kentucky. And then I'm forgetting the girl's name, but the girl that played Arya Stark on Game of Thrones, she comes back in here. She's really awesome as her character. I can't remember the name of it, to be honest, and that seems to be a bit of a problem here, obviously. But I thought the film was solid. Had some cool action scenes in there. Had some great character moments and some decent performances and stuff like that. The tone was interesting, and I thought if they would have went all in on the John Hughes mixed with horror vibe and really executed those and punched both of those elements up and had them more balanced throughout the film and balanced out the tone a little bit and had a bit more atmosphere, this could have been a really dope installment. But I do think for what it is, it's okay. if not sloppy, it's flawed, but it's enjoyable. And I think if you just want to watch a little bit more of a horror bend, like sci-fi kind of film, I think this could be really, really entertaining for you. And like I said, Anya Taylor-Joy really steals the show in the film from like everyone that's in it, and really shows her potential as a star and that star power that she has. And I think it won't be before long before she's a household name, because between doing everything she's been doing the last few years and what's going to come, I'm sure in the future, I'm sure she's going to get some other crazy things going. And yeah, so I think I'm gonna have to throw the New Mutants into C tier. It's alright, you know what I mean? Similar to Dark Phoenix, it's watchable, but definitely a flawed film if you're looking at it. And the more comic book lore and knowledge you know about, I think it makes this thing a little bit more uneven and less satisfying for you. But now it's time to get into the big boy on the block, the latest release, Deadpool and Wolverine from this year. And let me say this, man. Enjoy the hell out of this movie. I'm not going to dive too much into the spoilers here, but the cameos were phenomenal. Played a part into the story. So many unexpected twists and turns in that regard, except for like maybe one or two things I sort of predicted. But other than that, I had such a phenomenal time with the movie. Hugh Jackman comes back and does the best performance as the comic book accurate Wolverine that you could ever dream of. I don't know if this is necessarily better than what he did in Logan, but it's matching almost the same thing between the humor and the more comic book kind of zany nature that he can add to this film without having to play into just the dark gravitas of it. But he doesn't lose any of the gravitas that he has in the more serious, darker performances of Logan, and carries that over here really well. And his dynamic with Ryan Reynolds, with them being real life buddies and everything like that, really shines in this movie. And the chemistry they have, even with the other actors and the cameos, I thought were phenomenal. Just the humor and the meta nature and the jokes, 95 to like 99% of them land for me in this film. There's just so many great bits to get into. I don't want to necessarily get into spoilers too much yet, because by the time this is coming out, it's only been about a week, so I want to give people a little bit more of a week and a half and stuff to really just throw spoilers out in any video, because I do have a spoiler review if you want to see my full-on thoughts on the film, you know what I mean? But I don't want to spoil anything for people that haven't seen it and are just curious to see maybe where I see this in the overall kind of quality level of the X-Men franchise. So for me personally, it's going to land right there at A tier. I love this movie. I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. It is endlessly rewatchable and quotable, and I can't wait to buy this. The marketing was genius. Everything about this was great. And the one thing I will say, the closing credits were beautiful, and this film is such a great love letter and great homage to the X-Men, Fox, and Marvel era in general. So that's the one thing I love about it. It pays reverence. It pokes a lot of fun at the MCU. It pokes some fun at its own franchise, but also shows reverence and love and respect for it. And like I said, when spoilers are just gonna be flying and high going out there, and you can get more of my thoughts on that spoiler review down there in the comments below. But man, I absolutely love this one. It's definitely going to be going up into the A tier. So that's my list for all 14 installments of the X-Men franchise. Let me know what your tier list ranking is. Give me a link to your tier, or you could just drop, the letters and the corresponding movies down there below, or you could just rank your top 5, whatever you want to do. Just let me know where you would rank these, which ones you agree and disagree with. I love discussing all this nerdy content with y'all, and make sure you stick around. We got some other fun content coming up this week. We're going to be talking about a seminal album having a 25th anniversary, so make sure you check that out. That should be already up or about to come out by the time you see this, so make sure you go over there on the channel and check that out. We also got House of the Dragon wrapping up its second season. I'm going to be reviewing all the rest of the episodes this following week, so make sure you stay tuned for that. We got a lot of fun content coming up here on the channel, and check out my Queen of the Damn review that I did with Steph over there from the Final Girls Reaction channel. We had a lot of fun discussing that 2000s cult classic, if you will. Nu metal, goth, and Aaliyah all together, mixed together. So come on, man, go ahead and check out that review. Got that stuff all here on the playlist and everything, so make sure you go and check that out. I appreciate each and every one of you for sticking to the end, and until next time, make sure you stay tuned, you don't sleep, and stay safe out there, y'all. Peace.